If you're like most people, there's a gap between how much money you think you should be saving and how much money you actually are saving. And for a long time, I was terrible with saving money too. I would spend every dollar I made, but then I would almost immediately regret making a purchase and wasting my money. But more recently, saving money has become easy for me. I've literally trained my brain to love saving money instead of spending it. So now I'm saving about 80% of my income every year, which is why I'm on track to retire before I turn 30 years old. So I wanted to share the 5-step process which I used to train my brain to be addicted to saving money, which I guarantee will work for you too. I call this the G.R.A.E.T system. And yes, I know that's not how you spell great. And the very first thing you need to do is figure out why you want to save more money in the first place. Think about it this way. If you're trying to get through a jungle, you shouldn't just rush off and try to cut through all the vines. The first thing you should do is climb the tallest tree you can and make sure you're going in the right direction. But when it comes to money, a lot of people skip this step. They don't even think to ask why they want more money or how much money they want or when they want to have that money. So what are the reasons that you want to save more money? Is it to reach financial freedom? Or is it to save more money for college, to buy a house, or to travel? Or maybe you just want some extra spending money. Personally, I've been obsessed with reaching financial freedom, but that's just me. So I really want you to take a second and think about why you want to save more money. And this is such an important step because it's going to help you set your goal. And that's the very first part of the G.R.A.E.T system. You have to have a goal. If you want to achieve anything big, you have to have a goal that motivates you. Because if you don't have an end vision in mind, it will be so much more difficult to make short-term sacrifices today in support of a longer-term mission. And there are just a few key components of a good goal. First, it has to inspire you. If you're not excited about achieving this goal, then it's not worth pursuing. You also want this goal to be specific, and you want it to be measurable. Being wealthy is not a good goal. You have to define what it means to be wealthy. So instead of being wealthy, maybe your goal is to have $2 million in savings. And this is another really key part of a good goal. It has to be achievable. $2 million is definitely achievable, so I like that. But $2 billion might not be achievable. That might be possible for you, but in general, that's not a good goal for most people. But no matter what your goal is, it should be relevant to your overall mission. Basically, you should not be pursuing any goal that doesn't get you closer to your dream lifestyle. And whenever I'm setting a goal for myself, I also put a time limit on it. And this is another thing that I make all of my coaching clients do. It's not enough to say you want $2 million. You have to decide when you want to have $2 million. $2 million at age 25 is a completely different goal from having $2 million at age 65. So to recap the first step of the G.R.A.E.T system, you have to have a goal. And a great goal is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to your mission, and time-bound, which is why we say these goals are SMART goals. Having a SMART goal is the first step to becoming addicted to saving money. And here's why it's so important to do this step first. For a lot of people, spending money feels pretty good in the moment. But if you can remind yourself of your long-term goals, you're probably going to make a smarter decision. So having a SMART goal helps you make long-term decisions instead of short-term decisions. In other words, having a good goal is like having a map. A goal will keep you going in the right direction. But just because you have a goal does not mean you're on track to accomplish it. And that's why the second step of the G.R.A.E.T system is to have a roadmap to success. Let me give you an example of what I mean by this, and then I'll explain why this is so important. My personal goal has always been to reach financial freedom before I turn 30 years old. But when I set this goal when I was in high school, that felt super far off. But that's where this roadmap becomes handy. By using a compound interest calculator like this one, I was able to work backwards from my goal to set annual targets, which I call milestones. So one of my milestones was to have my first $250,000 before I turned 26 years old. By checking in on these milestones, I can make sure I'm on track to reach my big goal. And there are 3 reasons that building a roadmap is so important. The first is that big goals can feel completely overwhelming. I remember when I started college and trying to plan for 4 years from now felt just way too stressful. But I realized that I didn't need to worry about 4 years from now. I just had to focus on getting through the next semester. When a big goal is broken up into these smaller milestones, it feels way easier to accomplish. And you can apply this exact same logic to your financial goals. Let's say you want to save $1 million before you turn age 40, which I think is an awesome goal. But if you're 20 years old and just starting your career, $1 million might feel like a huge amount of money, and 20 years might feel super far off. So instead, you can set the goal of saving $2,000 a month. If you earned a 7% return on your investment, that would be $1 million in 20 years. You don't have to think about where you want to be in 5, 10, 15, or 20 years from now. You just have to focus on the next milestone. And another benefit of these milestones is they keep you super focused on what you actually need to accomplish. There are so many little things that you might need to accomplish before you achieve your goal. But by focusing on just the next milestone, you can use your energy much more efficiently. And the third reason that having a roadmap is so important is because things just never go to plan. And this actually happened to me, just in a good way. When I made my roadmap, I made sure it would work even if I never earned a raise. But what that means is I'm actually ahead of schedule now. And if you are ahead of schedule, then you can either 1, worry less about money, or 2, set even more ambitious goals. But if you're not saving enough, then you can make adjustments now instead of waiting. It will only get harder to get back on track later, so the sooner you recognize this, the better. So either way, checking in on your shorter term milestones will give you a much better sense of whether you're on track to reach your goal or not. So what I want you to do is take a good look at the goal that you set in step 1 and think about where you need to be in 1 year from now to make that goal a reality. And then where would you need to be in a year after that, and a year after that? Once you have this roadmap to get to your big goal, we can start the fun steps, because everything up until now has just been planning. But if you really want to train your brain to save more money, you have to turn this roadmap into actions. Because at this point, all you have is a big goal and a list of milestones that you have to hit along the way. So now it's time to decide exactly how you're going to hit all of those milestones. And if your current actions are already putting you on track to achieve your goal, then you can stop watching this video. You don't need to make any more changes. But if you clicked on this video, you probably want to train your brain to save even more money. So what I want you to do is look at your next milestone and figure out the easiest way to get to it. So let's do a little example so you can see what I mean. Let's say that to achieve your next milestone, you need to save an extra $6,000 per year, or $500 per month. The question is, what is the easiest way to save an extra $500 a month? This is really going to depend on your lifestyle. Maybe you should drive less, cook at home more often, take in lunch to work instead of eating at a restaurant, cancel a couple of streaming services that you really don't need, and switch to a cheaper phone plan. Or maybe you just move to a new apartment that costs $500 less a month. So honestly, there are a lot of different actions you could take to help get a little closer to saving an extra $500 per month. And if you need help brainstorming, I made a downloadable guide of 50 different ways I save over $50,000 per year, which I put in the video description for absolutely free. And don't neglect the small things. Even if saving $5 per day feels like nothing right now, it can be the first step to building much more powerful habits in the future. And remember that it's better to have small actions that you will take to improve your life than it is to have big plans that you won't actually accomplish. But look, this is the spot that a lot of people get stuck, including me. Because at this point, you know everything you need to know to achieve your savings goal. But it's so hard to actually do it. But when I found the solution to this problem, it literally changed my life. So let me explain. Personally, I always struggled with going to the gym. I tried for years to make myself work out consistently, but I always failed. And the reason I failed is because I was trying to force myself to do something which I didn't really want to do. And that can work for a little while, but not forever. Almost everyone makes this exact same mistake. They think they can use willpower and discipline to force themselves into being a completely different person. But if achieving your savings goal makes you miserable, then you won't achieve it. So instead of using willpower or discipline, we're going to use a much more powerful technique to literally train your brain to save money. When you wake up in the morning, you probably get up and brush your teeth without even thinking about it. And it's not like brushing your teeth is a super fun and enjoyable activity. It's kind of boring, but you do it anyway. And the reason you brush your teeth every morning is because it's a habit. Once an action is a habit, you don't have to force yourself to do it. So if we can take this same lesson and apply it to saving money, then you'll be getting rich on autopilot. Building wealth will be as simple as brushing your teeth. That's why the fourth step of the G.R.A.E.T system is to establish habits. But how do we build a new habit? Well, in all of the research I did, I found 4 key components. And you've already done the first thing, which is to set a goal. Creating a habit is so much easier if you're actually motivated by something. Second, you want to connect your habit to certain cues. Basically, you want to be as specific as possible. So just as an example, maybe one of your goals is to eat out less often. So to make that more specific, you could say, I'm going to pack my own lunch every Monday through Thursday. Third, and this one's really important, you want to make this fun. And that might seem super obvious, but a lot of people make a big mistake here. Once I was trying to build the habit of eating healthier. So to do that, I told myself I had to be super strict throughout the entire week, but then on Saturdays, I could eat all of the junk food that I wanted. But this strategy completely backfired. I just became even more unhappy on the days I was eating healthy. So when you try to build new habits, make the habit fun by itself. You want to enjoy the habit, not have to reward yourself for doing it. And fourth, it's really helpful to create external accountability. I found I'm way more motivated to do something if I've told someone else that I'm going to do it. So when I started this YouTube channel, I told a few of my closest friends what I was doing and what my goals were. By telling something that I was going to do it, I felt like I had to do it. For most people, it's easier to give up on your own dreams than it is to let someone else down. So having an accountability buddy makes a huge difference. Even so, these habits are not going to form overnight. Depending on the type of person you are and the habit that you're trying to build, it could take anywhere from 15 to 250 days to build a new habit. But once you do have a new habit, your brain will literally be rewired to save more money. You won't have to use willpower or discipline to force yourself to do anything. But there's just one more step you need to take to make sure your brain is permanently rewired. This will make sure you're not just in the habit of saving money, you will love saving money. I started my journey to financial freedom with $0. I was lucky that I didn't have debt, but my financial goals still felt so far away. But every month I would check all of my accounts and calculate my net worth. At the start, this felt like absolutely nothing. But after 5 or 6 months, I started to see real progress. And in less than a year, I realized I was already 10% of the way to my final goal. This gave me so much confidence because I could see how all of my hard work was adding up. Even though I was still early in my career, I could see the finish line. I knew I just had to keep doing what I was doing and I would achieve my goals. And that's why it's so important to track your progress. You aren't going to see results overnight, but once you see that your plan is working and that your habits really are helping you reach your biggest financial goals, it will be so much easier to stay motivated. Now, before you rush off to implement the G.R.A.E.T system for yourself, there are just a few more pieces of advice that I wanted to leave you with. But first, let's very quickly review. To train your brain to save more money, you just need to follow these 5 steps. First, set a goal that motivates you. Second, create a roadmap to achieve that goal. Third, decide on the actions you will take to reach each milestone. Fourth, turn those actions into habits. And lastly, track your progress. At the end of this, your brain will be rewired to save more money. But there are 3 pieces of advice I wanted to share before you try to do this yourself. First, this process will only work if you're trying to accomplish something that you actually care about, which is why step number 1 was setting a goal. You have to know what you want to achieve before you can train your brain to get there. Second, remember that some change is infinitely times better than no change. A lot of people try to reinvent themselves overnight, but it's just not realistic. Break down the transformation you want to have into smaller, actionable steps. With enough small steps, you will become a different person eventually. And the last thing is something I've really struggled with myself. Ever since I was a kid, I was great at setting big, ambitious goals, but I was almost never happy when I actually accomplished them. What I've learned is that it's not really about the goal. Improvement is a direction, not a destination. Goals exist to keep you on track, to make sure you work on things that actually matter to you. But your life should improve just by working on the goal, not just by accomplishing it. And the last thing that I wanted to point out is that you're probably much closer to reaching your goal than you realize. You could become a millionaire and retire early, even if you only saved about $20 per day. If you want to see how, you just need to watch this video right here.